So we'll record this. It'll include the PowerPoint as well that Ellen will be, talking through with you. Again, if you have any questions that come up during the presentation, you can put them in the chat function. And at the very end, we'll make sure to have a Q&A time where I'll unmute everyone and everyone can, queue up with their questions if they want to have a little dialogue back and forth with Ellen. And yeah, Ellen, you can get started anytime now.
With your invitation, I think Rachel sent you also out a form, which will be actually the very last slide. But if you printed it out, or you can make notes on it, or just take your own notes. And also there'll be contact information at the end. So if you'd like to have the SBDC work with you, you'll have some contact information to do that.
I will actually put in a quick note with my email in the chat function to have everyone individually send me an email. I did not want to send this out yet to the whole list of RSVPs because just like in any other kind of context, there's more RSVPs than we have participants right now. So I wanted to share this individually to you guys. So give me a quick email just during the first minute or two of this presentation, and I will shoot that form to you so you can be preparing that way. All right, and then,
thank you.
Yeah, and I will share my screen so that Ellen can get started with the PowerPoint. Just a second. All right, everyone see that okay, I think? Ellen is the only one that can actually verbally respond. Ellen, does it look okay?
and you can just open the slideshow, click on slideshow up there.
Absolutely. I'm trying to multitask because as you can see, it's going great. All right, Ellen, take it away.
All right, super. Well, as you can see from the slide, this is business resiliency. And I just, I love what I'm doing. I've been at the SBDC almost 8 years now. Well, actually over 8 years. And being able to assist business owners, it's been my whole career. And it just really makes me happy because I can use expertise to help others. I'm also a business owner. I have a co-owner with a company as well. It's an internet-based company. So you can see here Pima Community College, the Arizona Commerce Authority, and the SBA, as I mentioned. Okay, next. Did we lose the big slide? From beginning, or there you go. Well, now you see what I look like. Some webinars I give, you can see me, and some you can't. So now you at least know what I look like. So I hope you like this. You're not alone. I'm sure some of you are feeling that way, or you're with others and commiserating, but this goes beyond that. So I hope that today you're going to walk away with something that you can use and do. So next. So today is a bridge to tomorrow, and so up to this point, you've survived the crisis, this initial part. I hope that many of you were able to obtain the funding. I will tell you, myself and my team have helped well over close to 200 companies. The dollars are everything from $1,500 to over $500,000 and everything in between. The good thing is that you all probably know the first wave, the big banks, and took care of the big customers, and that money went just over a week. So the second wave, fortunately, the money was for small companies and only small banks. The big banks already had a queue of people, but this was a way to ensure that small to medium-sized companies get funded. And I have to tell you, the amount of fundings the last 2 weeks have been incredible, and I'm very pleased about that. So that's the first part, is surviving the crisis, getting where you are, maximizing where you are, and even to some form of success that will continue to roll up. Next. Okay. So resiliency, this is the description for it. For the SBA, and I'm sure you're all aware that typically SBA is making disaster loans for floods and, accidents and big things that happen. So it's quite unusual that they were coming up with a loan for a forgivable loan, to help small business. And I just want to tell you all, I think that both the SBA and the government have been remarkable. For some who may have gone through some pretty tough times getting this done, all in all, it's been 2 months, not even. And during that time, look at, the first 389 billion went out. From my understanding, there's between 50 and 60 billion left of the 310, but a huge number more were companies were funded, so that's great. So, resiliency is the creation and execution of a proactive plan to help mitigate the loss of cash flow during business interruptions, such as this coronavirus. So enabling the business to continue. I hope that sounds good to all of you. It's really the basis of today. So let's talk about next, what are some examples of interruption? I think these pictures help tell the story. Think about, I'll go up to the bullet points, but think about the empty truck and just think how agriculture is. And they just, agriculture was not part of the first funding and they did add it, which is great. You may be hearing they're dumping milk every day. A lot of foods can't be harvested. You go to the store now, a portion of the meat area is empty. It's just a reality that the food can't be prepared or produced, then delivered. You see the truck empty, and then restaurants now who, at first were doing just pick up, they're having a difficult time. They're having a difficult time getting product, getting food, getting the materials. Someone's asking about EIDL loans. So let me go there towards a little more the middle. Thank you. So, so you see the empty restaurant and you see the empty truck. So at this point, key employees are unable to work. As I told you, some companies were told you have to close and the employees were unable to work. Many are getting unemployment, and that's been interesting in itself. I'm sure as a business owner, if someone was getting unemployment and with the stipend making more, a lot of them didn't want to come back to work. So the PPP has a whole new thing about that, which is great. It just was in the last week, a week and a half. So if you have an employee in that situation and you give them a written letter telling them that the job is there to come back to work, and in a written response they say no, then that can help with the PPP loan, because it's having your employees work. Keep in mind that the 8 weeks, it's 8 weeks or 56 days, started the day you got your money in your bank account, not when you sign documents or submit it or anything. So please, please, please separate that money. A lot of people open checking accounts. However you do it, it's really important. So as you know, you're experiencing decreased foot traffic, the supply chain I just explained, event closures, working with a number of companies who put on events. And I'm sure you've heard about the summer camps, and the kids are going to be doing that virtually, just like they've been doing school. So the event closures have basically shut down some companies in all. Okay, next. So how do we survive this crisis? Again, you can see the positive attitude makes a difference. The last bullet says you have to lead the charge and be positive, even if you don't feel like it. We all, I'm sure, have days like that. But our employees look up to us and they're looking for that. So finding things for them to do to contribute is so important. So employee retention, that's what the PPP loans are all about. And so as you receive that money, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about that in case you don't. But right now, take an accounting of where you are. You know where you are right now. If this thing unfolds partially, as it sort of is, I mean, you ask 10 people, when do you think this is over, and you get 10 different answers. So we can't anticipate it, unfortunately, but we do want to be ready. That's really the whole point. So take an accounting of where you are, take advantage of resources. You don't have to go solo. Let's say you're not good at the internet, or, all the different tools there, then hire somebody. And then it's kind of a win-win for both of you. There's some great people that do a lot of the social media. And again, you have to lead the charge. Okay, next. So maximizing where you are. Take advantage of time and make the best use of time. And as you see on the bottom left, time is our most precious resource. And you say, Ellen, you're beating a drum. I am, but I really want you to think about you are in charge of that. That's what you can control. The teamwork, so that if it's just you, it's your family, it's you and employees. Create a team. I love what they're doing with all the medical folks who are working. And every time I go in a store, if I go to the grocery store, I thank everybody working. Thank you for working, because they put themselves at risk. And so your internet uses, as I was mentioning, make the best of that. And again, I gave you the example of the full service salon. All right, so next slide is really, really important. I talked a little bit about it. Know your banker. I will tell you that there are people that I worked with that started out like the first week, towards the end of March, the first week, and just got funded last week. And that's because they didn't know anyone at the bank. They didn't have anyone that could help them. You went in and you applied for the loan, whether it were, and I'll try and intersperse here, whether it was the PPP loan, whether it was the first loan that came out, which was the disaster relief loan. It's EIDL is the short form for it. And really think about this loan. It was typically what they do in this kind of scenario, in a disaster situation. And so that loan is funded by the SBA. The PPP loan was funded by the CARES Act, so that came from the US Treasury, two different places. The SBA is facilitating the PPP loans, but I want you to separate in your mind the two different ones. So the SBA loan is a full SBA loan. And I can tell you that most SBA loans, because of collateral, generally are not done before a couple of months. So in this loan, it's broader what it can cover, because you can have some operating expenses, unlike the PPP. You cannot duplicate. If you remember anything from today and you get both loans, you cannot duplicate. You can't claim your mortgage interest on your PPP and then claim it also on the EIDL. So really be diligent about that. So on the SBA loan, the good thing is that the interest rate is 3.75, which is a very good rate. And this loan can go up to 30 years. So those two together mean that it can be a pretty reasonable payment, which I know Rachel can tell you all about. So having said that, once you show what you need, they will take collateral. And we used to laugh in the banking business and say, yeah, an SBA loan, they take everything but your firstborn child. What that means is if you have a car, if you have a house, if you have equipment, whatever you have, they're going to take as collateral. And that's why you see here crisis lending, except for this stimulus package. It's really important to understand why. So let me explain an SBA loan. During the recession, the majority of loans were SBA. and it's a guarantee. So let's say you go to your bank and you have this need for this loan, but your cash flow's a little tight. It's not quite enough for the bank to feel comfortable. You don't have enough collateral and to support the loan. And collateral is generally like 80% they're looking for. So it could be equipment, it could be your home, it could be cars, but collateral gives them a comfort zone. So if you fall short of all of those, the bank can get an SBA guarantee. Generally, those are 75%. There's a few exceptions to that. So what that means is, okay, so the bank makes your loan because it has a guarantee, but then you default. The bank has tried to work with you, it just hasn't happened, and default. The bank is going to cover 75% of that loan. So I think you can see there's a stimulus to be using an SBA loan, but it does come with these ties. And it's no different for this loan. And because of collateral and checking out collateral and doing underwriting, not like the PPP loan where basically you gave your payroll information and maybe a little bit about your mortgage interest, but that was pretty much it. You filled, you went through that process. But on this loan, this is a few months. And so because of that, they came up with the EIDL advance loan. And this was a loan up to $10,000, and it ran through so quick. It ran out of money quick as well. It's been refunded also. And this can be an advance loan for the PPP or for the EIDL loan, either one, while you're waiting to get funded, just to give you that bridge. So the way that works is, though, it'll say 10,000, but it's limited to 1,000 per employee. So if you thought you could apply for 10, but you only have 5 employees, you're only going to get $5,000. So, all right, next. Now, what happens when the economy is like this? So think about during a crisis. There's job losses, bills still come due, lenders get tight, and they do, and it's going to last a while. Remember the recession, the majority of loans were SBA, and cost of funding goes up because risk drives cost. And you can see that when you look at the economic risks, the length of time to recover, which is a big unknown, the global economy, stock market fluctuations, Congress divided, do we think? We did get this done, and cybersecurity. So just as a quick aside, please, please, please be watching cybersecurity. I'm just telling you that the hackers are out there, umpty-fold. If you don't know someone, and a quick thing they taught us at the college was, so let's say Chase Bank, you get an email that says, I need you to update your information. If at the top, the end of the code, if it doesn't say chase.com, don't open it. Don't even open it. So just be really careful. But these are the things that the economy, and they're impacting us. So we're going to take the rest of the time and start getting into what you can do. Okay, next. Okay, so okay, your credit standing. This is so important, and I know you say, oh, and it's a challenge right now. And yes, it is. We've been through other challenging times. But let me tell you why it's important. So as I mentioned earlier, sometimes you have to get an SBA guarantee. Sometimes you have to get, specialty loans like with Rachel, who does a great job. All those things, and a lot of it can come to your credit score. So your poor credit score can cost you more, both business and personal. Your car insurance, they're looking at your credit score. So if you're paying higher, that can be a part of it. This can impact your ability to borrow, especially in tough times. The fact that you pay your bills is an important thing. So can you fix it? It's an algorithm. I've been doing credit all my life, and I will never know what that algorithm is, but there are a couple of hints. One of them is, so some people have a credit card and they've had it since they were 20. And then they get this credit card in the mail and they say it's 0 interest rate. But they're not big borrowers, so that's all they have. So they close their long-standing one and open the other. Well, then your credit history looks short. Another one is if you run your credit cards up over 50%, then that starts dragging your score. So say you had 2 lines and they were each 10,000, it would be better to owe 5 on each than to use 10 all on one. Just those kind of little things, but it's a complex thing. The whole point is pay your bills, because if you're not able to pay them in good times, how are you going to borrow money in tough times? And lastly, better rates come with better scores. So all good reasons. Okay, next. All right, so after PPP, after the idle, what's next? You have your funds now. Make sure you spend them on payroll. Some people actually open separate accounts. I'm reviewing one right now for someone who's concerned where they're going to end up. So just, you have to keep them segregated. It's 8 weeks, 56 days from the day you got your money. It will, and they're talking about, today's the first day we had gotten an application for forgiveness. So we're all still absorbing it. But one of the things they're talking about is people could get caught in a situation where the annual average for the year now, their paydays don't fall right. And so there may be some options to work with that. But just know you should be keeping track. So, so you have payroll, and what they came up with afterwards, I don't believe was in there from the beginning, because they thought some people may not hit it just because of the industry, the business, and how it was hit. So they said 75% has to be payroll, has to be, just the minimum, 75%. 25% can be mortgage interest, it can be rent, and it can be utilities. And the utilities do include internet connection, not the phones themselves, but the internet connection. So that can help offset it. So why do you think that's important? So everybody says, oh, it's a 1% loan. That's really a good thing. But think about this. It's a 2-year loan. The first 6 months, no payments, interest accrues, but you have 18 months to pay back this loan. So that's at 1%. But if you borrow enough principal, just think, excuse me, how high those payments are going to be. So I don't think people have thought about that. They've just thought, oh, 1% is going to be a low payment. And that may not be the case. So we're glad to help you with that, figure out what the amortization would be, what it would look like, what can you do. So bringing employees back, again, finding something for them to do, cross-train, help with marketing. Some are painting, you know, fixing up the facility, whatever those are. And so if you know, it's if you can't have the employees, you can still pay them, and that's still payroll. It's keeping them employed. So there are many employers doing that. They're paying their folks. So next. So here's what are some critical functions. What keeps business going? Selling products, and what this is the ideal time to think about diversifying. I think that's the next slide, but I'm going through all this because it'll help you with the form I'm going to come up with at the end. So selling products, manufacturing products, you obviously want to accept payments, and manage your cash flow. My biggest aha coming to the SBDC has been how many companies don't really understand cash flow. They understand profit, but profit is not cash flow. And so let me just quickly kind of explain that. So your bottom line, I can't even tell you how many people come in and say, I had $100,000 of profit and I have $20,000 in the bank. Now, how can that be? And that's because that's all they managed to. So let's say you did have 100,000. Well, then you go to the balance sheet which most don't understand. We have a great class, a profit class that we make, and Rachel's been through it. She can tell you it's great. So we will be having those, and we're thinking of trying to do some of that virtually. So you go to the balance sheet, and if you're a company that sells on credit, you have invoices and you send bills out. So then you have accounts receivable. So in accounts receivable, you have $40,000. So there's $40,000 in cash that was spent of that 100,000. So now we're down to 60. So then maybe we own our building and we make payments on our building. And for the year, that's $30,000. So there's 70 of the 100. And maybe there's a car loan that's 10, and that's 80,000. So that's why they only have 20,000. So really understanding cash flow and going forward as we recover is more important than ever. And again, that's something we spend a lot of time on. I think that's probably the most rewarding part. But coming out of this and understanding what cash flow is and how it's ramping up and what you need to do is really important. Okay, next. Okay, marketing 101. Making use of this time. Highlight your employees, makes a connection, turn on messaging, expand your social media, internal, external, and think about why should people or companies buy from you. So I'm going to give you an example. So there was a gal that was in this group that I was in, and she was marketing. Her company was marketing, and she started from scratch. And what usually happens is, and this is what happened with her, is, you know, it was flat, and she started going up, and then she sort of plateaued for a bit. And, you know, she came up with some new things, and then she moved up again. But then she hit this brick wall almost and couldn't understand what happened. So what she decided to do was contact 5 of her clients. This is real important. I don't know if you want to write it down. She decided to contact 5 of her clients who like her best. What we tend to do is go to our 5 best clients. But typically, if they're larger, you have a relationship, they know you, they know the pricing, they know all of those things. But and one of those could be one that love you. But why do they love her? And so she did that. She changed the way she was doing things. She quickly grew, and now she speaks all over the country and the world. And all because instead of just going and saying, who's my best customer, she went and found out what the customers love about her and did more of it. So you have time now. Those are the kinds of things that you want to be doing. Again, why should people or companies buy from you? I teach Boots to Business out at Davis-Monthan for those who are retiring and want to start a business. So think about what could complement what you're selling. So the biggest one that usually comes up, because keep in mind these folks, these military are from all over the country, is always like, to me, it's barbecue. We have the best barbecue in Texas. No, there's not good barbecue in Tucson. So I'm going to open one. So when you think about that, it's the restaurant and all the rest, what would be something that he could sell that would be complimentary that they could take home? And I know you probably all got it, barbecue sauce. So he has something complimentary. So when it's slower times, he's, think about Starbucks. And, Starbucks is known for coffee. But I can think when I go to the airport and if I've wanted a cup, those cups are like $20. It's amazing. When I go over how much things cost Starbucks, you'd be kind of shocked. But they make it work. So maybe that's something you can do. Say, Ellen, a time like this expanding, yes, it can actually be the best time. Okay, next, just briefly, because I've talked on it, maximizing your website, make sure it's up to date. Maybe you've never sold online. I'm telling you, the masks, and I hate those little cotton ones, so I have a couple I've ordered from people who are making them that are, more attractive, but still will serve the purpose. That wasn't something they were doing before. So, you know, finding out if people want to buy online. Can't believe how much of that's on Facebook. And then adding videos to keep customers interested, as we talked about earlier. Okay, so next slide, employees. Cross-training is a great time to cross-train. And it'll make them feel good, but more importantly, they'll be learning. Be virtual, new ways to communicate. Maybe your employees are better at that than you, and so, you know, having them work with you. Hire online support, and again, giving employees the opportunity to contribute. Okay, so with that, let's talk about the plan. We're going to start with, this is the time to expand Diversify, as I just mentioned, so see where you fit with that. And next, managing cash flow. And this is where we help folks, we help them access to capital, sales, HR, I mean, the whole realm of owning a business. Cash flow is the most critical. It will make or break a company. And we're in a, you know, a tumultuous time. So we help you may work on talking to your suppliers for terms. Everybody's in the same boat. So the little example I give is when this first started, if you remember, it was March 23rd is the first day that I heard officially. So it was March 23rd, and one of my clients calls me and just crying, and I said, what's the matter? And they were renting a building, and the landlord hand delivers this letter, and it says, your rent is due on April 1st, and I expect it to be on my desk or you're out of here. Now, once I got her up off the floor, I told her, you need to get your lease, take it to an attorney, let him review it. I am, you know, unless it's really something different, he cannot do that. If you remember early on when this started, that on the residential side, folks could not be, you know, kicked out of their apartments and their houses, but it didn't count for business. And so the governor, shortly thereafter, you know, made the same position. So as it turns out, in the lease, you know, they had to give certain days notice. And so the best thing to do, what I tell everyone, is to negotiate. A lot of times your landlords can get these loans as well to help them while they help you. And you don't ask for forgiveness. You just say, can you put 2 months on the back of the lease? Those kinds of things. Okay, keeping less inventory, keep your receivables as low as you can, although everybody's in the same boat, and alternative markets. Next. Okay, so here's a challenge for you. Let's get busy making a plan for next steps. Again, we talked about engaging your team. I know I sound like a broken record, but I've just seen such great successes in these last weeks. Gather information. What worked in the past? What have you seen with a peer and a business like yours that, you know what, this is the time to try that? Time frames. If you don't put a time frame to it, it won't happen. Just going to tell you. You're going to make a nice little list. You're going to say who's going to work on it. And you're not going to put a time frame. You're not going to stick to it. It just won't happen. So it's just important. Resources, SBDC, and I know you've got the city of Tucson is doing some great things, like what Rachel's doing. So there's some great resources for you. So let's talk about next steps. So what we're going to use is what's referred to as a lean canvas. So instead of a 20-page business plan, and I know Rachel's used to seeing business plans for loans, this is going to be a plan that is very specific. And again, I don't see this being a 20-page document. So business owners, you should all participate. You're getting a link from Rachel for the form. I don't know if you were able to print it out before. You can make some notes that I'll be sharing, or just make notes separately and then transfer them over as applicable to you. So you have the link. Now get to work. And again, do this as a team. All right, so let's go through the business model canvas. Will that go to a full page again, the slideshow and from the beginning? One over. Let's go there. Okay, cool. All right.
So Ellen, I can keep it, I can put it out to the full page, but I do need to really quickly send that out to everyone who shared their email with me. And until that happens, I can't quite do the full page. So I'm going to keep it like this just temporarily until I get that email sent out with the document, and then I will pop it back to the full screen.
All right. Well, let me start with the first box, which everyone can see. What is the 1, 2, or 3 problems you would like to address? No more than that. You won't get it done. That's not to say as you complete them, you replace them. That's fine. But when we're trying to focus on something that's going to make a difference for your business, make it 1, 2, or 3 things. And we're working with a lot of our clients on these, and we're a little bit of accountability partners. Also, answering questions that they may not know for the next step. But the first thing is the problem. So we all know it's cash flow, it's employees right now, might be getting access to materials. There's so many things. So, so the first one is, you'll see when you have it larger, a little bit larger, but it says list your top 1, 2, or 3 problems. That's why I always give the example of the gal with the marketing company. She did one thing and she did it really well, and then she could go from there. And then the next one is existing alternatives. So on the, part of it is, okay, so I've been closed for 2 months, and when I open up, how ready am I going to be? So again, using this time to be ready, instead of when the all clear comes, really makes a big difference. So that might be your biggest problem, is being closed and then opening up. Keeping qualified staff, we talked a little bit about that, and that's really important. The flip side of that is we're hearing that a lot of employees want to work, and so again, making them a part of where this is going works really well. And then customer retention. If you had to close and that was it, and you haven't done anything to keep that link going, what's going to happen, this is just my perception, is it isn't as if the door's going to open wide first day. We're probably 50-50, at least a lot of the articles I'm reading, in terms of I'm ready to go buy, I'm ready to go eat out, and you got the other half saying, nope, I want to make sure this is really, really, really over. And so if you are in a situation where you have person-to-person kind of sales, you're probably going to have a ramp up. The other part is, if folks haven't been making as much money, they're not in a position to do a lot. There will be pent-up demand, and that's a good thing, but it should be channeled, and that's why understanding who your customer is and retaining them is really important. And then cash flow. So just if it ramps up, what are the absolute things I have to do? What should I invest in? This is how the existing alternatives, so list how these problems are solved today. And then I'm going to be repeat is put a timeline with these. Doesn't mean that you'll absolutely stick to them, but it will keep you more controlled in your effort. Just trust me, it just works really well. Okay, so we talked about the problem, and now we're going to talk about the solution. So let's say we had 2 different ones, and so for the second one, actually, when I talked about customer retention, again, the marketing, offering gift certificates, a number of companies are doing this, because when the time comes, when they have that gift certificate and they haven't had services, they're going to want to use that. So that's an idea. And then videos, getting videos, we have social media, but YouTube has become so popular for everything. I can't believe that I live on a computer all day, and we're working off site because college is closed. And it's amazing how more acclimated I've become. I wouldn't have imagined. But watching helpful videos for me, because I am here like this and it's been hot for walking, the college gives us these YouTube videos to do like 5, 10, 15-minute exercises. And I can tell you, it helps me think, it helps physically. So you could be doing things like that that will help people. So you want to be you want to be in front of the customers continually, not just asking for their business. And so your second one is, how am I going to bridge this? You may need to get a line of credit. That might be a solution. So this is where knowing your banker is so important. You'll need to put together some projections of how you feel it's going to ramp up. Again, we do that every day with folks, even when we're not in this situation. So just thinking about what's a possible solution for each of the 1, 2, or 3 problems that you come up with. And then what are the metrics? How are you going to measure it? If you don't measure it, it won't be as successful. So, determine, I want to have the doors open, and the first day I want to have 5 people come. By the end of the week, I want to have had 25 people. Be conservative. Nothing's worse than making yourself upset because you overestimated. So be conservative, but think about some metrics that line up with the solutions that you came up with. So again, I'll bring you back to not just profit, it's about cash flow, inventory control. With the new items, the same items, but you don't want to keep maybe the amount that you kept in the past. So the UV, it's not the light. What's your unique value proposition? And what that means is, as you see here, it says single, clear, compelling message that turns an unaware visitor into an interested prospect. So for me, the unique value proposition, I'll just go back to the salon. I just try and use one company through the whole thing. It's beautiful inside. It's just all glass. It's clean as a whistle. And you look at the mountains, you look at the Catalinas. So I'm not even aware that her service is going. I'm so relaxed there. It's so beautiful. So I can go to any salon and sit in a room or sit in a box, but that's the unique value proposition for that particular salon. So think about, what is your unique value proposition? Should be single, clear, compelling message, okay? So with that, your high level concept, again, so to promote it, I will tell you, when the owner was building the building, I told him he needed to have a landscape or a painting or drawing made, so that was his advertisement, because that would be something, when I see it, I want to go there. And eco-friendly, meaning no smell when you go in. You don't smell any product. It's just like amazing. So those are things why I go. I obviously have to be well taken care of, but that's almost expected. So what is it, what part of the proposition do you do in terms of concept? And then unfair advantage, something that can't be easily copied or bought. And I think that pretty well speaks for itself. If you have something other people don't have. Channels, what's your path to your customers? Some people, some of it's the millennial versus baby boomer thing, and who finds information and how they find it. And your ideal customer is a millennial. You're probably going to be online. They're going to be on their phone. Older generation wants to see pictures. They want to feel it. So just that's what the channels are about. Your customer segments. This is why I tell you the story about the clients who loved her best. So who your target customers, the testimonials, just to remind yourself what they are and maybe what's missing. Maybe you've had a good client mix. but you may be missing a whole target area. And then early adopters are list the characteristics of your ideal customers. Just asking. People love to be asked. Why do you love coming here? You know, and no one thinks they can ask. I don't mind when I'm asked. So that's how you can find that out. So once you've done all that, that's your, again, it's short and simple. Matter of fact, your first throw at it should fit on this page. Pencil them in, and then you can make a plan from that. The cost structure. So let's say you're going to do some YouTubes. What's that going to cost? I'm going to introduce a new product that goes along with the rest. I'm going to convert how I do that. What will that cost? And then you balance that with your revenue streams. So what are your revenue streams that are going to support the cost structure? And I wrap it all up again to say it's really important you put timelines with this, and probably not real long ones. The actual execution, yes, but putting this together and seeing what things can I do first and just get going on it. You'll feel good, your employees will feel good. So that's the plan. Next. So we have time for Q&A. So yeah, it does sound like a mouthful. PCC SBDC. It's shorter than the whole Pima Community College Small Business Development Center. I told you who we're funded by. You know, the SBA is making so much happen right now. Pima Community College is working on retraining folks when they come out of this, if they can't go back to their other jobs. And job training, I'm part of workforce development. Arizona Commerce Authority, I've done a webinar for them, and it was on banking. And they've got some great webinars if you go to their site, and great tools. So we're grateful for them. So all of that, again, allows us to provide the no-cost counseling. And then there's services and incentives again. And we do serve both Pima and Santa Cruz County. So teamwork works, and knowledge is power. And with that, I'll open it up for questions.
Thank you so much, Ellen. I'm just going to take a moment to unmute you all. And then you can also, if you prefer, put your questions in the chat feature, whichever you're more comfortable with. Okay. I see a couple of different little sound boxes. So does someone want to start with the first question? All right. I'll throw out a quick question, just something that I've encountered a few times. Ellen, could you possibly help folks to understand if PPP or EIDL are not the best options for them? Maybe the way that they've done payroll for their business doesn't work with how the SBA defines payroll for PPP, or maybe the EIDL loan is taking a little longer to get through. Are there any other options that you know of that could be a good tool for financing?
So beside, and by the way, the EIDL advance loans are going very quickly now. Are you not just doing PPP loans? Are you also doing regular?
We're just doing PPP loans until PPP funding dries up.
Okay. So the city of Tucson has a loan program that you can contact. It's Barbara Coffey's office, and they have funds that the council made available. There's also the CDFIs, the BDFC, I think, is actually making the city of Tucson loans. For nonprofits, there's the nonprofit loan fund, and also the Kiva loans. Rachel, you may remember those. Those are also being made available. So there are other sources, and I'm not sure how they are advertising them, but you can contact any one of those organizations and see what they've got available. And generally, the three loans for the idols, the two idols, and the PPP, pretty straightforward because they don't involve underwriting. These Kiva loans are really like almost like funding, like GoFundMe kind of. As a matter of fact, they may use that. The others will do some underwriting. Again, you know, having your financials, and if you don't have somewhat of a plan going forward, like I'm sharing with you today, you know, it's going to be difficult because they're going to look at, okay, we're bridging this gap right now, but we want that to lead to something you've already thought through. And I know, Rachel, you'd be the same way. If someone came to you for a loan outside, you know, the PPP, you'd be looking at that kind of thing. I don't know if you want to mention that for a minute.
Yeah, and then for folks, you might have been confused. I unmuted you all and then realized that no one wanted to jump in verbally with a question. It seems like folks are more comfortable with the chat function, but if you do have a question that you want to actually ask, you can unmute yourself at this point. Just wanted to clarify that. Yeah, I would say for us, well, first, I'd encourage you guys to go to our website. We serve 7 different states at this point, and so we do have resources for each state's market in terms of other funding that we found out there if the PPP loan or the EIDL loan isn't the best fit for you or your business. So please do check that out and let us know if you have more questions. It's something that, again, I think you want to keep searching your local resources, and we can help you with that if you need a little assistance, because we do hear, you know, as Ellen, I'm sure hears too, there's different opportunities that come for funding. They kind of come and go as the funding is available, and so make sure to reach out. For us, yeah, I would say until we're done with PPP loans, we're just a one-stop shop for that, because we want to make sure that everyone who needs that and who is eligible for that gets access to that. One thing I keep in mind for a business that was really struggling before COVID-19 hit, but it's going to be pretty difficult for these SBA funds to be something that is a good fit for your business, because what it's looking for is businesses that were doing okay and then were impacted by the COVID-19 shutdown. So do keep that in mind as well, that if the business was kind of on the brink right before COVID-19 hit, it will be harder to find that sort of funding through these different options. Ellen, is there anything else you wanted me to elaborate on?
No, that's good. Beth had a question about 5 weeks versus 8.
Yeah.
So PPP loans are really being driven by the Treasury and the SBA and not by the lender. So a couple things to keep in mind. So the lender's not underwriting it. The lender is not being held responsible for what information you provide, only you are. And the rules are the same for everyone. I don't know what the 5 weeks meant, but from the day your money goes into your account, you have 8 weeks, 56 days to spend that money. So during that time, you want to keep copious records so you can demonstrate that at the end. If you did 100% payroll, but then you're going to be short, someone didn't come back, whatever that might be, then you can use part for the rent, mortgage interest. So Beth, I know you saw the example. I can't tell you how many times people could not get hold of a banker. So hope all of you after today will get to know your banker, because I promise you, you're probably going to need it going forward somewhere. So
Beth, I would recommend
you unmute and see if I answered your question.
Beth, I think, let me know if this might work for it. Yeah, my understanding is you have to pay out 75% of previous payroll in 8 weeks. So let me back up a little too and add something to what Ellen shared. So when the bank or the lender is calculating what you're eligible for PPP, they're taking certain documents that the SBA says are, you know, valid proof of payroll for the type of business you have. So if you are the one owner of your business and it's an LLC, and you have, you know, payroll documentation showing payroll records for 2019, and you also have your 2019 Schedule C showing your distributions, we can take those 2 different documents, we can whole data from those documents to show what your payroll was for 2019, that we then take that full amount, we divide it by 12 to get your monthly average payroll for 2019. We multiply that by 2.5, and that is your eligible number. So my first thought is, if you think that Bank of America did the calculation wrong and that you are actually eligible for more, it is important that you are diligent, like following up today until you get an actual person on the line to make sure that they recalculate that. Because right now, while there are still PPP loan funds available, they can adjust that amount if they were wrong. So we've had some folks who we did PPP loans for who were like, you know what, I think you actually miscalculated this. About 90% of the time, it was actually them just misunderstanding how we came to that number and what different documentation was allowed by the SBA to be considered payroll. But sometimes they provided an additional document that helped us to increase their amount, or there was something that we missed that we were able to correct. So it's important that if you think they underfunded you, that you follow up with your banker until you get a response, because there's still time for them to correct that. Let's see here. And then
I would say if you would want to come to the SBDC, what you'll do is she has contact information. That's the last page of the PowerPoint. And I review a lot of these just to see if everything was calculated right. With the big banks, they didn't have a local banker who really looked at it. They basically had underwriting teams, probably not here, just going through a process. And so depending on what was provided and how it was provided and how they calculated it, like Rachel said, we could maybe take a look at an adjustment. But 5 weeks doesn't, no, it's 8 weeks. It's 8 weeks from the day of funding that they count. So they took an average, and why they multiplied by 2.5 is that covered the 8 weeks. And that's the amount of time they're gonna look for you to spend that much money. And if you didn't include your mortgage or your utilities and you're short, you can use that. So you didn't have to put it in at the beginning. You're able to add it because people didn't know if they were going to have maybe one person not come back or whatever that might be. And so that's why they allowed that 25%, even if you didn't have it at the beginning, but you'll need really good records.
So yeah, I would definitely recommend following up to see if you can get a person, like some sort of like person's email or phone number, because you want to have someone to be able to appeal that process to if you do find that they might have miscalculated it. Because again, it's possible. Like Ellen mentioned, there's just teams of underwriters just plowing through all these documents, trying to get as many in into the SBA system as possible. So if you think there's a mistake, definitely keep following up with them. Again, Ellen mentioned that you know, she can have, sorry, I don't know if you guys heard that little buzz right there, but one of my colleagues is trying to bug me right now. But you can have Ellen or someone at your local SBDC, if you're not in Tucson, actually go over that with you and make sure that what was calculated by B of A is correct, and if not, to follow up. Another question that was thrown out there was by Kelsey. She wanted to know, for the EIDL loan, is the advance, so the advance grant, subject to restrictions for use? What about the loan itself? I'll speak really quickly to that, and I'll let Ellen get into that as well. But you, just like she had mentioned, you don't want to double dip. So that's the biggest restriction that there is. So if you get the EIDL advanced grant of maybe $3,000, let's say you have 3 employees for your business, just make sure that those funds are being used for something that's separate than the PPP loan use if you're getting both of those. You just don't want to be in the position where the SBA is like, hey, you said you're using this much for payroll from this, and then you said you need this much for payroll, but your payroll was less than those 2 things together. If that, you know, you just don't want to be in that position. Just make sure you're taking really careful documentation of how you use the funds. And then, Ellen, are there any restrictions on that EIDL loan or grant use of funds that we should get into?
Well, the advance loan is generally paid off through the PPP. So again, it's not duplicated. You're getting it in addition, and so it will be paid off from the PPP proceeds.
Okay. Another question was from someone with the username Nomads. Thanks for the information. Actually new to running a business, signed all the paperwork a week before everything went down, and was able to get a loan, which is good, right before this happened. But now obviously things are difficult. Can't qualify for PPP or EIDL because there were no transactions before COVID-19. Any thoughts on routes I can take to secure my business? We're a food truck business if it matters. A couple things that I would just mention is if you are looking for, again, if you're looking for COVID-19 relief funding, that would be pretty challenging since you weren't really operating really any time before everything hit. There's still options out there though. I don't know what county or state you're in, but if you look at our website to look at what other options there are for financing, there are other nonprofits like us that have good funding options available. I'll just speak to Arizona briefly since that's the market I know the best. BDFC is a lender in Arizona that is still doing, small business lending on top of their PPP loans that they've been doing. There's Prestamos as well. There's Community Investment Corporation in Pima County. So look to find who are the funders in your county or in your state that are still doing small business lending. Look for ways to get a line of credit established at a local community bank or credit union if you haven't done that yet. And for food trucks, just keep tuned in on when restrictions are lifted to be, serving food and what ways you can creatively serve food once, you're able to do that. If you're finding a lot of people are nervous because of safety, like maybe making a really big sign for your food truck that says like, we are like using masks and gloves for everything, like making it really clear that you are taking extra precautions to make sure that it's safe. Even having little things like where you line people up 6 feet apart in front of your food truck could be something that would make people feel a little more comfortable. Those are little ideas I'd throw out there. Ellen, anything else you would mention?
No, I agree. And sometimes, depending where you buy it, vehicles could be financed by the seller. That's usually the first thing I say when someone's starting out, because it may be difficult to get a traditional business loan.
Okay. Yeah, it's just been a lot of extra random red tape. I'm still waiting to even get plates on the truck, even though I purchased the truck back in March. They haven't sent everything through. So yeah, just kind of trying to figure out how to be in business before I'm out of business because I didn't get a start. So
Yeah.
fortunately I had some money set aside, but would like to not have to dip into too much of that.
Yeah. At the SBDC, Karen Burns, who's on the team, you contact the center and ask for Karen. She's helped a number of food trucks get started, and a couple have gone into restaurants. So she's a specialist. I think it's time, only because we were going to finish at 3. So anyone can send questions. I think you're sharing my contact information, Rachel. So
absolutely,
glad to help you one-on-one.
Yep. And thank you everyone just for being here. Again, we just want to encourage you that entrepreneurs are the most creative group of people out there. You're resilient. You find ways to make it work. And so continue to lean on your community as you are looking for ways just to be resilient, to come up with the ways to just weather the next couple of months. Use your team, use your network. Remember that you can experiment during this time. This is the time to take a really critical look at your books and at your business plan and find, okay, in good times, you don't really think as critically, it just doesn't make sense because you're doing fine. This is a time when it's tough and you can actually look at numbers and the plan and see, all right, what can I do differently? What are the first wave of changes I need to make? What's the second wave? Keep at it, keep in contact with us and with your local SBDC and SCORE network so that you can have those advisors and mentors as well speaking into your plan and giving you the helpful advice and resources you need. Thank you so much for your time.
And you recorded this, right?
Absolutely.
You recorded this, so.
Yep, I'll share the recording with you, Ellen, and I'll also put it on our website for DreamSpring. So look up for it there. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.